What does a mapper do when they've come to Florence but state of the map's finished and they're still here? Well, I'm going to find some museums. I think these will be interesting and I've been to one already. So come along and join me. Let's see what we find. An important person in history for science is, of course, Galileo, who was born in Pisa and moved to Florence, wanted to be a doctor, or his parents did, in medicine. He found more interesting things in physics and science. So I've come to the Museum of Galileo, but it covers a few other people, his students and some other things. Lots of mathematical physics instruments that are really interesting and amazing, and kind of from the 16th century onwards. In the 17th century, they started building telescopes, making telescopes, things so we could see the moon and other planets and go, hey, hang on, that looks a bit like Earth. And Galileo, of course, discovered many things, like understood more mass and how that affects things. And he came up with the theory that the Earth maybe revolves around the sun, and what that means for science and things. And of course, he's used a lot in the modern world now. So and his name and kind of respecting that, and go to that. So the European Space Agency, their version of GPS, their collection of satellites, is called the Galileo constellation. So I kind of used Galileo GPS to get to this museum. So it's fascinating, all these intricate kind of instruments and equipment that was being made and invented. Now I just use it all on my phone, and the calculations, the maths I don't even need to know, and I don't need to measure. I can just do a search and find out how big the Earth is, the circumference and things like that. But yeah, there's loads here. And there's also a lot of globes. I've only just started looking, so there's some big globes that I'm going to have a better look at, and some maps, which is just fun because I love maps and looking at those. Almost as many globes as the Globe Museum in Vienna. Not quite that many. But yeah, the Globe Museum in Vienna that I looked at when I was there for State of the Map EU back in 2011. So it's always fun to find these museums and these places that we have a modern conference. But yeah, I'm going to go to these small museums and enjoy the rich history from a few hundred years ago, and what it means now, and how it changed stuff that had been stuck for thousands of years. These globes are really big. They're bigger than my head, and just to show that detail and understand the Earth. And this one really detailed. It's massive. Don't know if you can get the scale on that, but all these moving parts and intricate. This one was made in 1593, and it's all trying to understand how the Earth works with its movement, with its seasons, with the stars around it and all that. And I didn't realise until I looked closely, trying to understand it, there is actually a tiny globe inside there. It's not just the movement and the bars kind of forming the circle around. There is a globe inside that then has a map of the continents, and trying to see how they relate to stars and how they move and change. And of course I didn't quite understand there. There's a lot moving. Maybe they did know. There's a lot moving than they realised. And yeah, I struggle to comprehend it now, even when I can look things up. I was trying to understand this massive map of the world, this world map, and figure out, because I just don't see the continents in the way we're used to. And Well, one thing is that's kind of south is at the top of the room, which, yeah, because there's no reason why not to. We're so focused on this later European idea of Europe. The colonizers are at the top where we are because we think of top as important. But no, I could see here, I said, I can't remember where I looked, and I was like, oh, but why is Asia up there and Africa's there, and it's changing my way of thinking. I did eventually find England, it's there. So this map was made by Morano in 1459. And it's fun to see and to shift our mind of we just know the continents how we think we know them. Life's a lot easier when you've got a map already to get your head around, and I know from OpenStreetMap that actually doing that from scratch is really hard. You draw and then you walk and you realise, oh, actually that kind of connects when I go round, and I thought they would be more distant. That's for a town on this scale. Yeah, I don't know how they did it. Amazing. I've really enjoyed this museum and the giant telescopes, all the instruments. Some of them were provided. There's quite a few artefacts from England, from Britain, because in kind of those years, the 18th century and such, Italy couldn't produce these instruments. It didn't have the capability and the skill, so they actually bought, various scientists would buy things from Britain, and that helped them kind of compete a bit with places like Britain and France and Germany in that sense, understanding the globe, so important for navigation and transport and the timekeeping involved with that. So it's been really fun. It's something that you just go, whoa, this is interesting, and ooh, what's that? And reading the descriptions. So I've done a bit here and looked at these big telescopes. There's also a few other bits. There's bits on discovering electricity, the magnetism and the attraction in that. There's a few bits in this museum about medicine and some models and things. I've had a look at that. Obviously, I'm enjoying the more kind of physics science based with navigation, measurement of places and how that influences what I do as a hobby now. And yeah, all that, those scientific advancements that we rely on so much now in our world. So it's been a really good museum. There's a few more bits I wander through, but then I'll go and see what else I can find in Florence. Will anything excite me as much as the Museum of Galileo? And now I'm in the Palazzo Vecchi, which was the town hall and still has the city kind of offices here, I think. I had to queue for about 25 minutes because I didn't get a ticket, and it's a lot bigger, much bigger and impressive. It's not a small museum. Look at that paintwork, statues and lots of space. So I'm going to look in here. The thing that drew me here is the Hall of Maps, Hall of Geographic Maps. So I don't know what it's going to be like. I think there'll be some maps, maybe one, maybe two. I'll have to go, I think, this way out of the big hall. So this is a 13th century building. It's big brick stone, lots of history and historical relevance for Tuscany and Florence and the Tuscan Parliament in this room. There's a picture with loads of seats, and it's packed full of people and tiered seating. The museum, it's got bits explaining this and how it changed through the museum and who lived here and various bits. That's really interesting. I'm sure there's videos explaining that and the Tuscan history. Of course, I'm looking for the geographic hall of maps, and so I think it's on this floor. I'm now on the second floor looking down at that hall, and I'm going to try and find this geographic hall of maps. I should have also said that some of that history, political history, mixed in with the religion, but the political in the 13th century and later on was connected with encouraging and promoting the scientific studies, the artistry as well, which is probably why there's so much artwork, painting, murals decorated here, because the political powers and the family that started the government and kind of looked at that were, one in particular was encouraging this and supporting academics as they were and professors, and this kind of idea that we should look into research things and understand more, and of course that would have led to encouraging lots of people in Florence, people like Galileo and his students later on. It's all the basis of why there's so much learning and Renaissance stuff here, I think, and really exciting, and why we also get maps and why this map room might be quite fantastic. Because it encouraged and it all worked together. So I'm really learning why there's so much here in Florence and why it's an important place, and encourage these people. Let's move on. I wanted to show you my reaction as I walk into the Hall of Geographic Maps, also known as a wardrobe, because it's quite small. It came a bit early. As I went into the room before, I saw a peek, and then I had to wait because there's a guard standing, I think, restricting how many people are in there. There's a big globe as well. I'm going to see, I'm not sure if I can walk in yet or if it's limited on people. There's many, many maps. Wow, so many maps made as a wardrobe, this room, with cupboards, but also intended to celebrate cosmology and knowing the world. So there's these maps, the world known in the 16th century, and animals on them, of course. I guess here be dragons in places, or them knowing there were strange creatures there. And this is the globe that was so delicate and suspended from the ceiling was the plan. Really just wanting to share the world. The idea in the 16th century that the whole world could be represented from one room. And it's not a big room, but it's just packed with maps, and I'm identifying these places a bit by the animals, a bit by the sea. It's a bit easier than that other map. Where are these places? I'm not sure. But it's wonderful. I wouldn't mind a wardrobe like this. everywhere really is represented here. I missed Great Britain, of course. I just walked past it, but they have a map of maps in here showing where they all are and what they depict. And I found the Great Britain one here. You can actually quite easily tell where it is. It's quite clear, and trying to look close over the railing, I can see Dunelm, the city where I'm from, which would have been a big religious and academic place as well, although it's not a big city. Of course, we learnt in the Galileo Museum that Great Britain was important for Italy as well, and this understanding of maps and navigation, and places like Greenwich in London leading the way in that. There aren't any animals on that one. All the maps are, they kind of feel 3D and come alive because of just the artwork and the mountains and the shading by the coastlines. Really is wonderful to see, and I think we don't always get that with some of the modern cartography and trying to show everything or having so much and trying to be digital. It's really beautiful, and some of the bits around the side with the I think Latin writing explaining what they show, and just figures and stuff. Wonderful and worth visiting. And I didn't expect this in the wardrobe room next door. There's two people restoring, I think painting and just cleaning up some of the maps, which is why there were gaps in that room of geographic maps. And it's 53 maps plus the globe, all depicting, covering the whole of the known world at that time. When it was made in the 16th century. So wonderful, it's a bit quiet in here, but watching them work and restore those, so we can still see that and see the colour and the vibrancy, the 3D that I said. Yes, it's great. The globe was really difficult to see, so cracked and worn out that I couldn't barely identify where there was painting on it, let alone where that was of. But they're restoring that and they're putting more lighting in that room. So if you come to Florence, maybe by then it will be better. Maybe we'll see more. This is nice to see. And in a bit I'll go up the tower while I'm here and see a view of Florence. Interesting, you can't quite get the scale of the height of this room. I guess it would easily fit 200, 300 people. But the photo that I saw upstairs, they were really squeezed in. And this is interesting. I do have to, my tickets didn't quite work out. I've been in the museum that you work your way up the steps. The peak of it being that geographic hall of maps, room of maps, wardrobe of maps, of the world, of the known world. Then walk down all the stairs. And I've also booked, as I said, to see the tower. So I've got to meet the tour guide for the tower at the bottom, and then walk all the way up those steps again. And a few more steps. We'll have to see how that goes. But such a big, impressive kind of palace building. still standing, and still lots of colour in these paintings. I don't know if this counts as a map, but in this courtyard as part of the museum building, but not in the ticketed place, there's these, I think I heard they were painted in 1665, these murals of panoramas, landscapes of Florence, which does show us what it was like, and you can divide, it's kind of geographical because you can see the buildings that were there, where the roads were. It's quite noisy and echoey, but another part that's kind of wonderful and interesting to look at and appreciate. Getting to see those places and kind of feel like you were there. I know I'm in Florence now, but the maps set me back, help me understand the geography of the place and how it's built up historically. I've climbed up the steps so far just to the battlements. There's crenellations and kind of archways supporting those. It's interesting, this was kind of defending the parliament that was in here, the residents, those politicians, but also as a status symbol, I believe, to show that, the parliament, the leaders had power over just the aristocracy, the rich people. They actually kind of ruled. And it's great, you can really see. Now I can get to see some nice views of Florence and the mountains in the background and the cathedral over there, and some other towers and buildings. And I think I appreciate it a bit more and the scale of the city. And it's just nice to see, like the old doors and things. But yeah, I guess you get a good view here. If you wanted to understand the world you live in, starting with your own city is good, and seeing that, as I said, the pictures down below of the city and the landscape and the place they ruled locally. I made it to the top of the tower of these battlements of the Parliament building. You can see the cathedral behind here, and there's even a bit more of the tower above me. It is interesting. It's clearly kind of quite grand, and all about that overviewing, and with that power becomes the helping the sciences, helping the kind of studies and the mapping and understanding the wider world, doing that on behalf of the people of Florence. And I can see a bit of a connection with Durham maybe, because there's the cathedral and the castle. They're slightly further apart, but kind of having to work together, political and religious power in that. And an interesting end, worth the view, and just seeing how big Florence is